hit if anybody's been hit, but apparently something is wrong here. Something is terribly wrong.
President Kennedy shot today just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas.
The shots apparently came from the Texas bookstore depository building. Police were looking for a young white man dressed in a white shirt, carrying a lever-action type rifle. One witness told reporters that he had seen the rifle disappearing from that window after the shots were fired.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
Tears streaming down their face. There's only one word to describe the picture here, and that's grief, and much of it.
There's been a shooting out here. A police officer. Somebody just went into the Texas Theater on West Jefferson.
Cuffed him, put him in the car from the station, and turned him over to Captain Fritz in the Homicide Bureau.
Lee Harvey Oswald, O-S-W-A-L-D.
Did you kill the president?
No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about it was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question.
Nobody said what?
Sir?
You have.
Nobody said what? Okay, we can't hear you back. Okay.
Police have traced a rifle purchased in Chicago by mail order for $12.78 at the price of $12.78. The life of the President of the United States apparently was bought.
Of Lee Harvey Oswald, accused assassin.
You have anything to say in your defense? There's a shot. Oswald has been shot. All the doors have been locked. Holy mackerel. A shot rang out as he was led into his car.
Oswald expired at 1:07 p.m. He died.
This is Dealey Plaza, the very site of where President Kennedy was publicly executed in front of hundreds of spectators. Because the only suspect was eliminated, the crime of the century would now have no trial. A nation that was desperate for answers, Lyndon B. Johnson created what is called the Warren Commission, led by Chief of Justice Earl Warren. The sole purpose of this group was to submit a full report of the events of the assassination. This 28-volume report was to be the document to close the case. The commission's conclusion was that Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots from the 6th-floor window of the Texas School Book Depository using a 6.5mm Italian Carcano bolt-action rifle, and that he acted completely alone as the only assassin. Because nobody was left to testify, the American public went along with the conclusion of the Warren Commission. However, it didn't take long for many to find major factual errors in the report. Because these errors, much of the American public refuses to believe what they were told.
So do we think Oswald even took a shot?
No, I don't. No. Prior police officer told me Oswald, he took his fingerprint after he was dead and put it on his finger. That's what a retired police officer told me that studied this ever since that day.
If you look over the wall, you see the first X. All right, the headshot almost had to be fired from here. You clearly see the second X.
Then the autopsy notes up in Bethesda were burned, the original notes? Wow, that's interesting. What, I just decided to burn my notes?
Yeah, they asked Dr. Humes, did he do it? He said yes. Did they ask him why? No.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you why. They had 4 police officers up here.
Okay.
So there's nobody up here.
Are you sure they were real police officers?
Well, okay, you got me there.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to assume they were police officers.
There you go.
Never thought about that.
Recent polls calculate that 11% of the nation believes Lee Harvey Oswald acted as the lone assassin. The truth is that not many people know a whole lot about November 22, 1963. In order to best analyze the events of November 22, 1963, is to travel through the timelines of Dealey Plaza and the journey of Lee Harvey Oswald, both interconnected, to see if the facts prove the story. To start November 22nd, we should start early in the morning, where Lee Harvey Oswald leaves his rooming house at 7:46 a.m. His co-workers, whom he was carpooling with that day, said he had some long paper bag with him. Oswald later told police they were used to carry curtain rods that he was going to send to his wife. Oswald later arrives at the Texas School Book Depository at an unknown time. 11:40, Love Field. President Kennedy lands at Carswell Air Force Base, where he will take a short ride in his motorcade to the Trade Mart in downtown Dallas. Back in Dealey Plaza at 12:15 p.m., a man has a seizure in the middle of Dealey Plaza, causing a small commotion in the crowds waiting to see the president. At the same time, when the motorcade should be riding through Dealey Plaza as published in the Dallas newspaper, however, it was 15 minutes late for unknown reasons. At 12:15, Lee Harvey Oswald is spotted in the second-floor snack room having his lunch by a co-worker going to see the motorcade. Also at this time, Bonnie Ray Williams is having his chicken lunch on the sixth-floor window until 12:20. Williams sees no sign of Oswald or anybody else. Some 5 minutes later, several witnesses recall seeing two men in the sixth-floor window. Many say they saw a man holding a rifle. Others say they just saw two men. Lee Bowers, who is watching in the rail yard tower, says he sees two men pull up behind a picket fence right behind the grassy knoll, where many witnesses say they saw shots come from. At 12:29, just moments before the shooting, the motorcade makes a turn onto Houston Street. This is now the easiest shot for any person in the sixth-floor window of the Texas School Book Depository. The motorcade is at a constant speed of 15 to 20 miles an hour. At exactly 12:30, Kennedy makes a hairpin turn onto Elm Street, where the shooting will take place. Kennedy's motorcade slows down to 11 miles an hour. 65 photographers at Dallas will capture the final moments of President Kennedy's life. As the Zapruder film begins, we see President Kennedy, calm and cool, smiling and waving to spectators. At one point, Kennedy suddenly stops waving and turns to his right and left because he believes the motorcade has backfired. Then the motorcade continues down Elm Street. As Kennedy emerges from a road sign, you can see that he has been hit, raising his fists to his throat. The motorcade, instead of speeding up to escape from danger, the motorcade slows to almost a complete stop, where the president is hit by a fatal headshot.
But everything's back and to the left impossible with a shot from behind the president. If you want to know where the kill shot came from, not all the shots, but the one that did the job, try going in reverse. Start at the light post over there where the back of the skull and part of the brain landed, and in your mind's eye, come back with a straight line like a bullet flies through the air, through the X in the street where the president was, and ends up right here. You know what it doesn't do? It doesn't do a U-turn and go back towards the big orange building, okay? About 150 of the 400 witnesses that were out here ran up here behind the fence and then captured a guy. They encountered a man who claimed that he was Secret Service holding the area secure. And he ordered everybody to leave the area. He got a couple of cops to help him get rid of everybody. That made sense for about 25 minutes. So the head of the Secret Service here in Dallas showed up, and he said he never had anybody up here. He said whoever it was they encountered had bluffed him and got away. Said the same thing at the Warren Commission.
The bullet hole, the exit was in the back of the head, not the front.
Right.
They've got it being fired from behind and exiting his face.
Right.
The face is intact.
Right.
There is no exit.
Right.
They knew it wasn't true, but it sold a lot of books.
Pandemonium quickly breaks out, and spectators run to find the shooter. Several motorcade policemen riding alongside the motorcade spread up into the plaza to search for the gunman. Patrolman Marion Baker searches the book depository floor by floor after he saw pigeons fly off the depository. Approximately 90 seconds after the shooting, on the second-floor snack room, Lee Harvey Oswald is spotted cool and calm having his lunch. Oswald slips out of the book depository's front door, and the building isn't sealed off for 10 more minutes. Oswald returns to his rooming house where he grabs his .38 revolver and jacket. As stated in the original report, Oswald walked a mile in 6 minutes and shot Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit at this street. Oswald drops his shell casings in a bush and continues towards Texas Theater, as the Warren Commission states. Oswald then enters the Texas Theater without paying for a ticket. The cashier finds Oswald to be acting suspicious, and she calls the police. After a short scuffle, Oswald is pushed into a patrol car without being read his rights or provided any legal representation in all of his time at the Dallas County Jail. And during a transfer to a higher security prison, Lee Harvey Oswald is gunned down by Jack Ruby. While the wheels of justice turn for Lee Harvey Oswald, John F. Kennedy is under operation for his gunshot wounds. And after John F. Kennedy is pronounced dead, the body was illegally moved to Washington for the autopsy. All of the doctors at Parkland Hospital in Dallas described this: a small entry wound at the base of the throat, an entry wound below the left shoulder blade, and a gruesome head wound with 2/3 of the back of the head blasted out.
Kennedy, the Warren Commission would have you believe the shot hit Kennedy in the back of the neck and came out the front. The people at Parkland said the bullet hit him in the front and came out the back, 5 3/4 inches below the base of his neck.
One of the most incomplete, superficial, incompetent medical legal autopsies that I have ever seen.
After all the medical treatment was provided to the president, he was flown back to Washington, D.C., and on Air Force One, Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in as the new president. 3 days later, Kennedy was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. After the Warren Report came out, the American public refused it to be entirely true due to major inconsistencies, mainly the assertion that Oswald was a mediocre marksman and he couldn't pull off that shooting in such a short time. Many criticized the mathematical part of the Commission's conclusion, saying that there is not enough time to recycle the bolt-action rifle in the time of 5.8 seconds as established in the Zapruder film, and others criticized the lack of security in Dallas that day. First, in order to declare Oswald unfit to shoot the president, we must look at his military record. Oswald was a Marine sniper for a few years and scored the accuracy of marksman, which is the lowest of the ranks for a sniper in the Marines. Also, his Marine friends commented that he was a mediocre marksman at best. Even when Oswald is put into the position of the 6th-floor window, he is shooting almost at a vertical angle for at least the first shot.
If you notice one thing, when you're standing up here, you're shooting into a goldfish bowl.
What many people don't know is that President Kennedy was not the only one to be hit by a shot. James Tague, who was standing near the underpass, was nicked by a fragment of cement.
Left divider down there at the bridge. A bullet hit the curb on Main Street, flew up and hit him in the left cheek. Did you know about him? 501 Elm Place. All right. Now, why the first shot missed so bad, I don't know, but the first shot really missed because it hit Tague down by the bridge.
That hit James Tague on the cheek probably came from somewhere else. The second floor of the Dow Tex building is one of the suspected firing points, and from there it just misses the car by inches. To come from that window, it misses it by quite a bit, considerably.
Even if someone says that Oswald was the best sniper at that time, there is not enough time to recycle the bolt 3 times within a 5.8 second time frame. The FBI did 3 separate trials with the same rifle. Not one of the sharpshooters in the FBI could match Oswald's skill needed to achieve the task. Even if he was unable to do the shooting, he would have had to sprint from one side of the depository after shooting was done, to stash the rifle behind a barricade of books, sprint down 4 flights of stairs to reach the 2nd floor where he was previously spotted, past witnesses also going down the stairs who never saw him within that time frame. When Oswald is then spotted on the 2nd floor by patrolman Marion Baker, he is cool and calm, having a Coke. Then he has to jog a mile in 6 minutes to kill Officer Tippit, then reverse his direction to go into the Texas Theater. Even if nobody saw him walking or jogging, it would take an Olympic runner going full speed to even be close to reaching the location at the time that Oswald did. Unfortunately, Oswald doesn't have an Olympic track record, but witnesses of Officer Tippit's murder didn't identify Oswald as the killer. Even if Oswald was capable of both murders, the logistics behind the lone gunman theory is practically impossible to achieve. The Warren Commission states that Kennedy and Connolly were hit by a single bullet that created 7 wounds and was then found in pristine condition on a stretcher in Parkland Hospital. The fact of a bullet hitting 2 people is possible. The fact of a bullet hitting 2 people and creating multiple wounds is unlikely. But to have them hit both of them, causing multiple wounds, and then to be found in pristine condition, almost able to be refired, is almost impossible, especially with Oswald's rifle, position, and view. The sad truth of the assassination is that the president could have been saved with or without Oswald. Standard Secret Service procedures require agents running alongside the president's car. There needs to be at least 100 or 200 agents on foot in Dealey Plaza without question. Also, there can be absolutely no open windows or any suspicious bystanders, or they will be detained to ensure the safety of the president. All of these basic principles were absent on the trip to the known hostile city of Dallas, where extra security was needed even in a normal circumstance. Oswald was murdered by Jack Ruby, who was a nightclub owner and had mob ties. When Oswald was killed, Ruby casually strolled into the Dallas police station, past police holding back people trying to see Oswald, and guns him down with a gun given to him by a Dallas police officer.
Well, the other thing that makes no sense about all that is Oswald was supposed to be transferred an hour earlier, and they held him up until Ruby got there.
So he had to have, it had to be mafia connections with the police or something, right?
It was a setup. It was a total setup. Yeah. And did anybody ever bother to tell you that the fellow who bought Ruby the gun was a Dallas police officer?
Really?
Yeah. It's not so much money. What it comes down to is they gave him the offer he couldn't refuse. They told him he was going to do it, and he did it. He had no choice. Then he killed him if he didn't.
Okay.
They probably guaranteed him they fixed the jury.
Yeah.
They just fixed him.
Yeah.
When it comes down to who killed the president, we have to think about who wanted him dead and who would have benefited. Long before the assassinations, there was covert operations going on in areas like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and even Cuba. All of these were carried out by CIA covert operations apparatus, also known as Black Ops. The purposes of these operations were for rigging elections, coup d'etat, and of course, assassinations. Most famously, the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. This was purely CIA, but was a failure when President Kennedy refused to give air support to the American soldiers. Kennedy then fired head advisors to the CIA due to the failure of the Bay of Pigs. This created large tension between the CIA and Kennedy. In later years, during the early stages of the Vietnam War, Kennedy created a document that stated all covert operations would now have to be ordered by the Joint Chiefs of Staff and not the CIA. This ended the black operations overseas.
My dad hit the nail right on the head 1 hour after it happened. Guess who my dad thought did it?
Who?
Good old LBJ.
Why did he think LBJ did it?
He had stock in the law companies that were making weapons for the Vietnam War.
Interesting.
How much the Johnson family earned from the Vietnam War?
No.
Only $220 million.
Really?
Is that enough incentive to kill your boss?
And become president, by the way.
I killed mine for a million. I was in Vietnam, Germany, Korea, England. I was in there 11 years.
So you haven't been in Vietnam. You think LBJ did this to make it to make that war before?
Well, none of our major weapon systems had ever been tested in combat. That's why he was so anxious to get over there. Like the M60 tank, the M113 personnel carrier, the M16, M79 grenade launcher. None of that stuff was ever tested in combat.
At the end of the Warren Commission, President Johnson took advantage of a federal law that was on the books that said that a president could secret stuff for up to 75 years from the American public, from us, we the people, if it was a national security issue, which this, by the way, wasn't. It was a national concern, but a national security issue by definition is when America is being attacked. Pearl Harbor, 9/11, things like that. Well, at that same time, in September of '64, Johnson and his president's panel were telling us there was no big conspiracy. It was a lone gunman named Oswald. So why then would he automatically then say, for national security reasons, I'm not letting anything out for 75 years? It didn't make sense. Can't have it both ways. But that's what he did.
All these special ops were created by the CIA to carry out overseas peacetime operations. Even today, programs like the Navy SEALs, a task force used for unconventional warfare, very recently including the death of Osama bin Laden, this program was created by JFK during the Cold War. The ground reason of all these groups was to eliminate undesirables. If Kennedy was seen as an undesirable, he could have been easily eliminated by any one of these groups. They were working in the shadows, in the dark. Because of that, we can never find out who really killed Kennedy. Even today, in areas like Afghanistan, groups like the Green Berets are teaming up with local individuals to overthrow the government. And when they sneak out quietly, the locals take all the credit. This could have been easily the scenario for Lee Harvey Oswald. Once you consider that Oswald could have not been the sniper, you have to consider this. There must have been a conspiracy within our own government.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. Finally, whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us here